Carlie Irsay came out and spoke to the media today about her decision and her sister's decisions to retain Chris Ballard as the general manager and Shane Steichen as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. 9 years it's been with Chris Ballard, has a losing record, has never won an AFC South crown. The question was asked time and time again today, why is this going to be different? After 9 years, why would it be different? What she said was that she has left no doubt that there is a higher sense of urgency this year. I got several questions. Number one, why wasn't the sense of urgency communicated before this? Why is there a need for a higher sense of urgency? But more important than that is, what does that mean? How does a higher sense of urgency need to manifest itself in order for this team to get better and fight for an AFC South championship? In business, you learn about SMART goals, right? SMART goals, you got SMART, and they stand for specific, measurable, attainable, resources. You have to have the resources, and time bound. That's what a good goal is. A SMART goal is those 5 things. All right, what is the goal of this team? Is it win or walk? She wouldn't say whether it was win or walk. So this is meaning you either go to the playoffs or it's all over. You win the AFC South or it's all over. You win the Super Bowl, it's all over. You win 6 games or it's all over. Whatever the hell it is, you make it specific. Maybe that has been communicated to Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. I don't know. It was not communicated by Carlie Irsay-Gordon to us. I posted her entire media availability. She's a little soft-spoken, and so it might be a little bit hard to hear in parts, but it's there. And it's for you to audit and decide, okay, what does this mean? Because maybe I missed something. Maybe I did. So, but how about measurable? Specific. Measurable. Nope. We didn't get measurable. We got platitudes. It got to be more urgent. Increased urgency. That was said a lot. Repeatedly. Over and over and over again. How about attainable? We don't know. Because attainable would mean that it was measurable and we would have an idea of what needed to be attained. We don't know. The resources to do it. She did address this. Whatever is needed, they will have. All right, going to have the resources. Now, you got to decide what those resources are. And those resources do not include a first-round draft pick either in 2026 or 27 as it stands right now, unless they trade into the first round in either of those 2 drafts because of that trade for Sauce Gardner. Time-bound. Yep, we got time-bound. About that, there was specificity. This season. And even went on to say that on this day, next year, we're going to know. All right. I don't know what that does for us this year. You know, one thing that occurred to me as I was listening, because I've been through this, not as an owner, but as a manager, that it is difficult initially to manage people that you didn't hire. Managing people you hire is easy because you have conferred upon them this sense that, yes, they were hired by you. And so there's not a sense of obligation or owing, but there is a sense that this person believes in me, and I know that because I'm here. And I wouldn't be here if that person didn't believe in me. Chris Ballard earned the belief of Jim Irsay. Shane Steichen was hired while Jim Irsay was still living. I'm not sure the extent to which he participated in the hiring. By all accounts, he was very immersed in the hiring of Shane Steichen. So what this can be is this can be Carlie Irsay-Gordon hiring them because she didn't get to hire them. So by retaining them, she gets to hire them. And now she's got a little bit more hand, to put it in Seinfeldian terms, a little bit more hand in these relationships. She can walk up to Chris Ballard and say, hey, look, we laid out what this is, and this is not what I see. So I got a problem with this. And you set expectations based upon that relationship. Steichen, same thing. Although it's more important for Steichen and Ballard to have that relationship. But Ballard reports directly to Carlie Irsay-Gordon. And so that relationship kind of needs to happen. And I really think that that's the reason for the delay. She wants to see if through her management acumen, she can get the best out of Chris Ballard. She wants to see what that relationship is like. There's always been a third person in the room, and that third person was the person who hired Chris Ballard, and that is Jim Irsay. Now there's no third person in the room because Carlie came in yesterday or last week, she said, and told them, you are my guys. So, now that they know that, will their behavior change? Those were the interesting things that came of this. Like, if you're not willing as an owner to be specific and have your goal be measurable and attainable, and if you're not willing to communicate a timeliness, which she did, then you got a problem communicating your message. And so what you wound up with today was kind of a hodgepodge of everybody trying to be polite. The media, they were very polite today with Carlie Irsay-Gordon. They didn't want to push too hard. And okay, this is the first go round for that. Next time it won't be quite that way. She's not going to get away with being as platitudinous as she was. We're not there for platitudes. We're there to convey to you knowledge, to convey to you what this team is up to and what they are doing. And right now, we don't know what the hell that is, other than it is going to be represented by heightened urgency. We do know that. Do we know what the urgency is? No. Do we know how it manifests itself into winning? No. Do we know what resources are going to be made available that aren't made available now? They were able to spend to the top of the cap this past year. Who do you keep? Who do you let go? How much cap space do you have? What free agents can you go get? And can you build enough of a bankroll to be able to retain your own, a guy like Alec Pierce? Do you want to retain Kwity Paye? I would think not. Do you want to retain Michael Pittman Jr.? I would think not. Do you want to retain Zaire Franklin? I would think not. What are the criticisms of Chris Ballard that if I were Carlie Irsay-Gordon, I would eliminate? I would have him stop doing this. Is that I think he gets too close to the players. I don't think that he wants to cut his guys. I think Zaire Franklin is one of his guys. And Zaire Franklin is the guy I would cut. Kwity Paye, it would be sayonara. Nick Cross, I retain. The quarterbacks, goners. Other than Sauce Gardner, I don't know what you do with those guys. Maybe you keep Mekhi Blackman. I don't know. You got to have guys. You got to have cornerbacks. And it sounded for all the world today like Mooney Ward is really thinking seriously about retirement. And when you start thinking about retirement, you're retired. And I think that's where Mooney Ward is likely headed. He didn't say that today, but he said all but that. He said that his dad is encouraging him to retire. 3 concussions this past year. That tells you something. Concussion, like the brain doesn't heal the way a muscle does. It can't be surgically repaired the way an ACL can. A brain gets bruised, and the results of that brain bruise can be felt for a long time after a period where you think you are better. Then all of a sudden it kind of recurs. The brain is not, that's our hard drive, man. You cannot mess with the brain. You cannot mess with the spine. That brings us to DeForest Buckner. Is he going to want to play again? And if he's not, what the hell do you do with that defensive line? You're down pay, which, all right, what are you going to do? Hopefully you get better at that position. You do have Latu. Latu has an opportunity to continue to get better. You have Cam Bynum on the back end of the defense. You have Nick Cross if you re-sign him. You got Jermaine Pratt if you re-sign him. That's nothing to get excited about at this point. Offensively, you've got the offensive line under contract minus Braden Smith. Michael Pittman Jr. has got a cap number of $29 million and a dead cap number of $5 million. You've got Jonathan Taylor. Pierce, you've got to re-sign. If Alec Pierce doesn't want to re-sign here, you got a real problem. If he'd rather see what the marketplace is for him and go someplace else where winning maybe is a greater priority, you know what? We say it all the time. We get what we tolerate. And today, the Colts tolerated what Chris Ballard has wrought upon this franchise. And what he's wrought upon this franchise is occasionally good drafts. 18 was a good draft. 20, not a bad draft. 23, not a good draft. 17 was terrible. 19 was terrible. So he's hit and miss with drafts. He's kind of changed the way he looks at his position, where he always built through the draft. Now he's willing to accommodate an occasional free agent, and that's a positive thing. But I hope that Carlie Irsay is accurate. What I think she believes is that they deserve another run at this, with her being not somebody who's kind of on the fly trying to learn the job of being the principal owner of that football team. I think that's where they are. And okay, you can do that, but what it communicates to your fan base is you're tolerating mediocrity at a level that is almost unprecedented in the annals of the NFL. This is going to be year 10 for Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard had some very finite and specific ideas about how a general manager should do his job. Build through the draft, build from the inside out. I love them picks. All those things. They have not brought this city an AFC South championship when at the same time, every other team in the AFC South has won at least 2 during those 9 seasons. What is it that makes Carlie Irsay-Gordon or anyone else believe that it's going to be different this coming year? Why would anybody believe that? What is going to change? You don't have a first-round pick. So bringing somebody in who's going to immediately lift that's difficult anyway. You rarely find a guy who in year 1 is really locked in and ready to help. You're still unsettled in the quarterback position because you don't know that Daniel Jones is going to be back. And worse, you don't know that he's going to be able to stay back when he gets back. Is he going to get hurt? Hurt a lot with the New York Giants. Broke his fibula this year, and then maybe as a result of the broken fibula, he's a little out of balance, and he popped his Achilles. So he's had a knee, he's had, I think, ribs, he's had concussions. What next for Daniel Jones? And if Daniel Jones can't be adequately replaced when he goes down, then what do? Do you just suck it up and take the losses? Or do you invest in Riley Leonard and have him be the primary backup? Do you bring Anthony Richardson back? What the Colts media surmises is that Anthony Richardson would yield a 6th-round pick were he traded. I find that hard to believe. But maybe there's a general manager in the National Football League who would do such a thing. Charles says, Kent, I think I'm going to the Peach Bowl. Any update on Frankie or Wyatt? I say 31-23 this time. Mendoza, 2 TDs, 1 TD for Kalen, and a Mendoza rushing TD. I think you're low. I think 31 might be right, but Oregon is not going to score 23 against Indiana. They're just not. That defense is not going to yield those kind of points. In order to compete in this game, Oregon is going to have to go get the ball like they did at Oregon. That would have been 30-13 if not for that pick six. That's what's going to happen. I have no idea at this point about Frankie. I don't. And I don't about Wyatt either. I'll check. And we'll talk about that tomorrow morning. So this is, today I did not think was a great day for the Indianapolis Colts or its fans because we did not get specificity from Carlie Irsay-Gordon in talking about what this team needs to be or how it's going to get there. We just urgency. We have to have heightened urgency. Red alert. What does that mean? What does heightened urgency mean? Does that mean that people are going to work harder in camp? Does that mean that the evaluation process after the season, as they break down the tape and they decide whether this guy stays, that guy goes, is that going to be harsher? I don't know what any of it means. That's the first question for Chris Ballard when he talks to us later this week. What is going on? Everybody's pissed. That came up quite a bit. The Irsays are pissed. Well, good. They ought to be. What the hell kind of world would this be if they weren't? Everybody ought to be pissed. Thanks, Kent. Like the way you explained it from her side, being a first-time owner. I think it's really hard. I think what she's doing, first of all, she hadn't had peers. Her sisters are not her peers. She's alone on the top of that mountain. And she's figuring that out. And she's trying to figure out how to negotiate that. And it's not easy. It's lonely. Because she had peers. Her sisters were peers. They're not now. She's the one that's got to stand under or sit under those lights and take questions. Patrick says if Ballard wants to succeed, he needs to hold his guys accountable. Zaire needs to go. Pittman needs to go. Don't just hand the quarterback to DJ. Totally agree. What they've got to do is they've got to make it harder to make this team, and they have to make it harder to earn starting positions, and they have to make it harder to keep them. This has been a very comfortable. You know, I read, this is appropriate maybe of nothing, but I read Richie Ashburn was a Major League Baseball player who played for the Philadelphia Phillies for a long time, and he came over to the Cubs, and somebody asked him why the Cubs lose, or always lose. This is when he was a broadcaster for Phillies games. And he said because it was a country club. It was great. We loved playing for Philip Wrigley. He paid us well. Spring training was like on Catalina Island. It was awesome. It was a country club. I think that this place is a bit of a country club. I think once you're in here, you're in here. And unless you do something to upset the apple cart, like Bobby Okereke or EJ Speed or somebody like that, where you're just really mediocre to the level that we see that you're mediocre, you got a job here for a long time and you're going to get another contract. That's got to stop. You got to hold people accountable. You got to look at tape and get in people's ass, not pat them on a fanny and say, you know what, he does a very nice job in the community work that he does. I give a shit less about what these guys do in the community. I don't care. I start caring about what they do in the community when they start winning championships. At that point, you say, all right, what are you doing this Tuesday? Let's get out. Let's feed some school kids. Let's go to Wheeler Mission. Let's go to Gleaners Food Bank. Let's go to charities all around town. Let's build a house for somebody. Habitat for Humanity, let's go. But until you win, screw that stuff. Screw winning the right way. Win. Just win, please. I too am done with the feel-good horseshit. It's not relevant unless you win. When you win, then you earn plaudits from the community, right? Toby says it's crap. She said Ballard showed he could change tactics, because he did mid-season. Those were acts of desperation and for job preservation, not change from his learning total crap. Now, I don't know whether I agree with that because, yes, there was a mid-season trade for Sauce, and he gave up 2-1s and A.D. Mitchell, who were they were glad to get shed of. Don't let anybody tell you different. But what he did free agency, that was different. Going out and getting Daniel Jones, going out and getting Cam Bynum, going out and getting Mooney Ward, those were different moves from Chris Ballard. Kent, who you blame first, players or coaches? I blame the players. But the players need to be held accountable by the coaches. I don't know whether that's or whether it's happening on the regular. I don't know. And really, players need to be held accountable by players. You got to walk into that locker room, and if if you made some business decisions and you walk into the locker room after the game and you feel like you ought to be avoiding Quentin Nelson, that's a good thing. Any more IU football transfer targets or commits? Tell you the truth, I haven't looked because I wanted to get going on this as quickly as I could. Got the video of Carlie with the media posted, got in the car, drove back here as quick as I could, took no notes, looked at nothing, just fired up the machine and off we go. So I'm going to look, and if there's anything, I'll do a short to tell you all about it. You have to blame front office and play calling. I don't know whether Lou Anarumo survives this. I don't know whether he should. This defense, I don't know whether it's his fault. I mean, what do you do with Quiddipe and Latu as your two edge guys? And what do you do if you don't have Sauce and Mooney? You got two lackluster corners, so people are going to break open quickly. You got to play more zone than you would like, and all of a sudden you got a real problem. I disagree about the offensive line, Jerry. I think the offensive line is actually good. Carlie sounded a lot like her dad a few times. I disagree with that. I thought that she understood the questions. She was responsive to the questions. And when her answer was over, it ended. I thought tactically, other than the messaging, other than the content of her answers, right? But the scheme of her work with the media was actually pretty good. I'm going to answer the questions I want to answer. The questions I don't want to answer, I'm not going to answer. And questions that I've already answered, I'm not going to answer again. I gave you my answer to that because you know why people are re-asking the question. They want a different answer, and I'm not biting. Good for her. I saw where Tennessee wants to interview Lou for a head coaching position. Your thoughts? Enjoy. I like Lou Anarumo. I think with the right group of guys, he is a reasonably good defensive coordinator. I like the way he thinks. I like the way he's multiple. I like the way he's game-specific in the way he schemes. I like it. The offensive line is mediocre, especially this season. The moment they've faced adversity, they struggled. Well, partial adversity was when Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith were down for a bit. And Bortolini missed a game with a concussion. I think he missed one maybe earlier in the season. Quentin Nelson, I thought, was superb all year. I thought Tanner Bortolini was really, really good early. I think Gonsalves is a tough guy figuring out how to play right guard. I love Ryman. So I think that this is, it's not the best offensive line in the NFL, but it's good. This ain't Lou's fault. He inherited Bradley's and Ballard's personnel. Considering Ballard has 9 years and Steichen has 3, Lou deserves, oh man. Toby, I love you, but deserves got nothing to do with it. You either, you know what? There's a saying, you either or walk. That's the way it works. You mean Gus, the current coach of the 49ers, what a bum. Ken, are you optimistic for next season? I am not. I'll say the same thing I said before this season. This is an 8 or 9 win an 8 or 9 win team. The schedule is more favorable last year, but the roster is not likely to be as good. You still got to play the Texans twice and the Jaguars twice. The Titans are going to get a little bit better. You do play the AFC East and the NFC East, so you got to like those 8 opponents. But overall, I am not optimistic about this coming year as far as this being a 10-win team. It's the same team. They're going to win 8, 9 games. That's what they are. They're locked into this. And if you don't change things in it, if all you do is heighten the urgency, all is well, it doesn't mean a damn thing. Not a damn thing. So, NFC East and AFC, no. Wait, yes. And AFC North? They don't play the AFC North, do they? I don't know. We'll see. It doesn't really matter. We'll talk about that. We got a lot of time to watch that. Watch the movie Major League. You'll understand what's happening. That's not what's happening. Darth Vader, that's not what's happening. I believe we have the third best announcer for third down, or the best announcer for third down. J.J. Stankiewicz? Okay. Then we should have fired Ballard and Shane. Then new GM decides on Lou. Yeah, I think he'd bring in his own guy. I think he'd bring in his own coordinator. This is all, and somebody asked whether these guys were going to be linked, because Jim Irsay always wanted to link his head coach and his general manager. So he tried to do that with that preposterous press conference with Chuck Pagano and Ryan Grigson and Irsay in the middle, where Grigson looked like he was going to strangle somebody. Grigson looked really angry during that press conference. People were talking about that in the media room today. That was a wacky night. There was wackiness afoot that night. Groupie or Schrader, I like them both. I would take Schrader over Groupie, but Groupie doesn't bother me. He didn't miss a kick, did he? I wish I'd have been able to sign Groupie when Schrader went down instead of Badgley. Damn right I do. Anyway, I'll look on Peegs, try to figure out what the transfer portal situation is. Let's go. Brock Schott, tight end from Miami. 4 years eligibility, commits to IU. All right. I know I'm mostly joking with, okay. Can't change owners. They're toast. That doesn't mean that Carlie Irsay-Gordon is not going to be a high-quality owner. This is part of the learning. She's talking about Ballard learning to change, Shane being a young coach and needing to learn. Carlie Irsay-Gordon needs to learn too. Shane has it starts with me. Carlie has the higher urgency and starts with me. And then Ballard has, I've failed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's got to talk later in the week. I don't know what's going to come out of his mouth this time. You know, I have no idea what he's going to do. I don't think he enjoys media soirees anymore, tell you the truth. We'll talk to you a little bit later. And then, of course, Breakfast with Kent tomorrow. Can't wait for that.